let me introduce you to Catherine Hammond. Catherine's a lawyer by background. She has a business that has run for years in the field of estate planning. And that title can deceive you. The career of being a lawyer can deceive you because so much of the practice of law is about litigation, and it's actually adversarial in nature. And it's the complete opposite of who Catherine is in the world. Catherine is one of the most heart-centered people I've ever met. Her mission is to help people really understand the power of the word hope. The reason she's been in this business of estate planning is to help parents give hope to their kids that they can live a great life without them, to help kids as adults understand that it's time, when it's time for their parents to be free to leave this planet at least, that there's a freedom on the other side of it. Catherine has built a business around the word hope without ever saying that explicitly until now. And now is her time. Now it's time to reinvent the word hopeless and transform it into hopeful with a real understanding of the meaning of hope. Catherine is one of the most caring people I've ever met, and I'm thrilled to be able to introduce her session to you right now. Catherine, I love what you're doing in the world.
What a delight to see each one of you here. I'm honored, I'm nervous. I really, really want to serve you today. This is the third time that I have shared this Brilliance session. The words haven't changed much since the first time that I shared it, but there are some other things that have. I first shared this message in August with 4PC. The message really has been my life's work. Everything about my life had been preparing me to have this message to share. And when I shared it for the first time, I was a little bit nervous, and the response that I got was amazing, was very humbling. And then I shared it earlier this week with my law firm team. And at the end of the message, there was dead silence. And so I wrestled with the stories in my head about my presentation skills. I'm not going to lie, I also questioned the message. You can probably tell already that I'm an Enneagram 2, worried about everybody else's experience and feel like I've failed if other people don't respond immediately, with emotion, ideally. One of those moments where I wish that I was a 3. So today, I'm not teaching this message. I am living it. I have not mastered hope. I'm journeying with it. I'm exploring it. And I too am reconnecting with it moment by moment. If you were to meet me for the first time today, maybe we have a mutual friend and they suggested we get together for a cup of coffee or tea. You might wonder why I'm writing this book about hope. You might see me across the street before we meet in the cafe, greeting other people with warmth and ease. I look pretty happy and hopeful, at least most days. When we sit down and we start to share a cup of tea and begin to chat, maybe I would share with you about my mom's Alzheimer's that started when I was a teenager. And she was put on disability when I was in college, and by the time I was 22, I became her official caregiver. And as we sit there, maybe we would go deeper. And I would share with you some of the heartache that I've experienced just in the last 5 years, where 6 of the people in my closest inner circle have danced either with serious cancer or some other life-threatening situation. 2 of them have died. And you might see tears in my eyes when I talk about that. But they're tears of gratitude, not hopelessness. I've had my own serious health challenges over the last year. I spent months on my sofa, unable to really participate in life the way that I normally would. It hasn't been fun, and yet it's been an opportunity. Today, I am the best person in nearly every room at reframing things to find beauty. They call me the hope whisperer, but it hasn't always been that way. I went through most of my life feeling like I had no hope. After a childhood of neglect and abandonment, physical and sexual abuse, I set off to find hope. I did a lot of things to try to get hope. I mean, a lot of things. I was a master at pursuing it. I started with relationships. I was in relationship after relationship after relationship, including 3 marriages by the time I was 30. I was unsuccessful at choosing a healthy, lasting relationship. So I moved from my focus on that to a focus on work, finding my hope there. I'd always been successful at work, at everything that I've done. And so I poured myself in, and eventually I started my own law firm at my kitchen table. The law firm, an estate planning firm, grew quickly, and eventually it became a multi-million-dollar business. But that didn't happen without serious challenges. After the 2008 stock market crash, I didn't pay myself for 6 months. My house went into foreclosure proceedings. I wondered every day as I drove home if today would be the day that I'd get that notice on the door that said I had to be out in 3 days. I was a single mom. I didn't tell my kids. I was trying to hold it all together. Felt really hopeless inside. How I wish that I had known the truth about hope back then. I'm not the only one who's suffered. Pain and suffering are everywhere, but they don't have to ruin us. I explore hope because it did not come easily to me. Over the years, I have been allowed entrance into thousands of people's lives and hearts. And as they've allowed me to enter into the depths of their pain, I have discovered that I am not alone. What do you think is the single best predictor of a life well lived? Now, I know what you're thinking. Probably it's an easy life with no big problems, right? Or maybe it's a great childhood with great parents. Or maybe a partner and friends who love and support you. Or maybe it's resilience for all of the things that come up in life, the bumps in the road. And the truth is, it's none of those. Studies show that the single best predictor of a life well lived is hope. So as we dive in here, I'm going to have you type into the chat box, what does hope mean to you? Give me a word or a phrase that represents hope for you. Possibility. Empowerment. Empowering, yes. Belief and possibility, no matter how dark things may be. Yeah. Learned about hope because I experienced hopelessness, right? That's been a lot of my teaching. Trust in life, trust in myself. Great stuff. Society has fed us a lot of lies about hope. We've been fed these lies by religion, by spirituality, by our own parents, and of course, by the media. We don't even realize that we believe these lies. Even when we know what hope really is, it's easy to buy into them and feed them to our own clients and to our children. What's so important about hope? Well, there's suicide, of course. Hope makes all the difference between deciding that I need to take my own life and not taking my own life when things look dark. Without hope, we are hopeless. And, as we identified, it's the single best predictor of a life well lived. It's what makes the difference in how we navigate life, both the daily frustrations and the big adversities. It determines how we handle every little thing and every big thing. Hope is the precursor to resilience. It's the pathway to resilience. Hope is a basic human need. True hope is a tool. It's the tool that gets you out of bed in the morning. It enables you to have that hard conversation, to marry, to heal, to create. It's what empowers us to pursue our dreams. And it's what gets us through the hard stuff and allows us to thrive on the other side. And it's important to practice hope. Practicing hope when we're not in a crisis enables us to experience it when the adversity comes, and we know that adversity comes. Why am I so focused on hope? Well, I consider myself an expert on hope because I was an expert at thinking that I didn't have it for so much of my life. So let's explore hope. Let's take it out and look at it from some different angles. And I'm confident you'll start to see it in a new way. When I was a little girl, behind the normal middle-class walls of my home, like many in America, things were falling apart. The truth is that I was the middle child and the only daughter of a clinically depressed single mom. She was hospitalized twice for depression, once before she had any kids and again after my younger brother was born. I got used to her saying that she just couldn't take it anymore. It always started with yelling, and then it was followed by silence for days. She wouldn't speak to me. I felt incredibly alone in my own house. But none of that prepared me for the day when I was 8 years old, and her yelling left me cowering in the corner. And then she said it, loudly with tears in her eyes. I just can't take you kids anymore. I'm going to go kill myself. She walked out the front door, and the screen door slammed shut behind her. I stood there with my carrot-topped little brother. We heard the car start. We watched as her Dodge Dart made its way down the long cul-de-sac. And I stood there trembling with regret for whatever it was that I had done that made my mother's best option to kill herself. I knew that it was my fault. I knew that my world was ending. I can still feel it. I was terrified, hopeless. Fast forward to 8 years ago. Over the previous month, the walls of my business bank account had been closing in, and now I couldn't make payroll for my team of 13. And so I called my bank and I called my friend Carolyn. And now I was out of ways to believe that things would ever get better. Now, I was surrounded by all of the trappings of success. But in this moment, every detail of the demise of every one of my team members and their deep, deep disappointment in me was painted like this mural in my mind. I could see it all, like it was true right now. And so I laid there on my office floor, sobbing. And I knew that there was only one option: suicide, the ultimate failure. Looking back, so much that I believed about hope was a lie. And that kept me from experiencing hope in some really hard situations. And then 5 years ago, I was on an airplane. I was flying back from my beloved Slovenia, and I pulled out Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. If you've read it, you know that Viktor, while he was in the concentration camps, the Nazi concentration camps, he would picture himself in the future giving lectures about the psychology of the camps. And that act of picturing himself in the future doing something positive gave him hope today without that future needing to come true. I had been thinking a lot about hope up until that point. And in that moment, I realized that hope was not what I had believed it to be. I've had a lot of hard circumstances in my life. I shared my childhood of neglect and abuse, my depressed, suicidal mom, lots of other trauma. My husband left when I had a 2-year-old daughter and I was 6 months pregnant with my youngest. It goes on and on and on, the stuff of life. It always looked like everybody else out there had hope, but it felt like hope was just outside of my grasp. And when I would start to get it, it would slip through my fingers. But it was clear that if Viktor Frankl could experience hope there in the concentration camps, I must be missing something. I must be misunderstanding something about hope. When I look back now, I realize that I had been telling myself 7 lies about hope. See if any of these resonate with you. The first lie was that hope is finite. There's a limited supply of it, like a tank that can be empty. I thought that I could run out of hope. The second lie was that hope is tied to my circumstances. If my circumstances look good, if they look good for the future, then I have hope. If not, then I don't have hope. The third lie was believing that hope is really about the future, what's going to happen or not happen in the future. The fourth lie was that hope and deep pain are mutually exclusive. When my husband leaves while I'm 6 months pregnant, and I have a 22-month-old, I thought that there was no room for hope at the same time that I was in so much pain. The fifth lie was that hope is only needed for the big things in life, the crises like divorce and betrayal and financial ruin. I didn't believe that it was really relevant for everyday life, for the little ups and downs. The sixth lie was that hope is a commodity, a thing that I either have or I don't have. It's something that can be held or lost. The seventh lie was that hope is an exclusive club. Some lucky people get it. The people with great childhoods, great parents, faithful, non-abusive husbands, enough money to pay the bills. Oh, and the people who believe the right religious doctrines. Other people don't get to have hope. So I'm going to ask you to close your eyes for a moment. Think about a time when it felt like you lost hope. It may have been dramatic, like some of the stories that I've shared, may have included suicidal thoughts or attempts, or maybe it was more subtle. Giving up on pursuing a dream, not having a hard conversation, settling for a life that's less than what you want. You can't come up with a time specifically. Just remember that feeling that you've had when you've lost hope. When you're ready, type in a few words or a sentence into the chat box about the situation or the feeling when you lost hope. ashamed. Yeah, suicidal thoughts, lost, failure, feeling of being empty, tired, shame. Shame is a theme here. Embarrassed. Yeah. Here's the question when we're in that pit of darkness and it feels like hope is all gone, like we've lost it. Where did the hope go? I'm not the only one who has believed these lies about hope. How is it that hope has been so misunderstood? Let's start with how the word is defined. The New Oxford American Dictionary says that hope is a feeling of expectation and desire for a certain thing to happen. Like, I really hope that some people attend my Brilliance session. Thank you for coming. It's also defined as grounds for believing something good may happen. Like, I hope that my book about hope will be a bestseller. The third definition is wanting something to happen or be the case. Like, I hope that Rich thinks I'm brilliant. Let me be clear. The dictionary definition of hope is shit. It buys into all of the lies that I had believed about hope. That hope depends on our circumstances and the outlook for the future. It implies that you either have hope or you don't. This definition itself is based in fear, in warding off the darkness. It feeds hopelessness. If our circumstances aren't good, if the future doesn't look bright, then hopelessness is our only option. And that's why hope matters, right? Without hope, we are hopeless. Here is the beautiful thing. The Oxford American Dictionary doesn't purport to tell us how words should be used. It only reflects their common usage. That means that we get to decide how words should be defined by how we use them. Dictionaries update their definitions all the time. This year, they've been doing that a lot around racism. So what if we had a more helpful definition of hope? How could you look at hope in a way that makes it more accessible to you and everyone else, no matter what's going on? How would it change things if hope was not in limited supply? I now know that I have never been without hope. My mother was never without hope. Even though we thought that we were, it's actually impossible to be without hope. So what is hope, really? True hope, mature hope, has nothing to do with our circumstances. True hope is a hidden and endless wellspring within us. It's accessible to us no matter the circumstances. It's the sense or the belief that I am okay and I will be okay. Hope is our lifeblood. It's our life force. And it's not just about avoiding or surviving disaster. It's part of everything that we do. It's vital to understand it. If you don't know what hope is, how would you know when you have it? We don't always use the word hope. We experience hope as well-being, happiness, confidence, contentment, peace of mind, joy, faith, trust, all of those things. I shared the lies that I used to believe about hope. Now let's explore 7 uncultivated truths about hope. The first truth is that hope is an endless fountain. It's a force alive and flowing through you. Alexander Pope wrote an essay on man. He said, hope springs eternal in the human breast. Because it's there and it's always flowing, we just need to tap into it. My Canadian friend Patty talks about maple trees and how in the springtime, there's always maple flowing through the tree. There's always maple available. You just have to put in your spigot into the tree. You don't have to wait until it arrives. You can tap into it anytime. It also means that hope is not in limited supply. How very perilous to believe that hope is a tank that can be empty. Even when we think we've run out of hope, we haven't. It's an access to hope problem. It's not a quantity or availability problem. Remember how I told you that my mom left that day to take her life when I was 8? Well, she came home that day, and at least one other time when she thought that she was out of hope. I didn't take my own life that day when I was laying on my office floor and I thought that my hope tank was completely empty. It turns out that it wasn't. Even when we think we've run out of hope, we still get up the next morning, we start a new relationship, we love another dog, we run back into the World Trade Center on 9/11 to save yet another person. The only exception is the person who takes their life. If they stayed alive, I am confident that every single person would end up getting out of bed the next day and eventually find hope again. The truth is that hope is an endless fountain. The second truth is that hope is accessible in every situation, under any circumstance. Remember Viktor Frankl, how he experienced hope through the daily horror of the concentration camps. Hope is how we survive any trauma. John McCain spent 5.5 years as a POW in Vietnam. He spent years in solitary confinement. He was tortured and beaten. And then he came home. And he was able to be a contributing member of society because of hope. Hope is also how people experience the most beautiful days of their entire lives after a terminal diagnosis. People consistently say while they're dying that they've never felt more fully alive. Hope does not fail us. Circumstances do, people do, expectations do, but hope cannot fail us. Hope is the wellspring that's available for us to tap into when circumstances, people, or expectations fail us. The truth is that hope is accessible in every situation. The third truth is that hope lives in the present. It's not actually about the future. Thich Nhat Hanh says that hope is important because it can make the present moment less difficult to bear. Hoping right now that my book is a bestseller in the future is not actually about whether it's a bestseller in the future. It's really about making me feel good now. Viktor Frankl, remember, he was picturing himself in the future. That got him through the present moment without needing the future to come true. Even if he had eventually been killed in a concentration camp, the last chapter of his life would have been a much better experience because he had experienced hope. My oldest granddaughter, Sequoia Song, was born at 26 weeks, almost 3.5 months early. When she was born, she was purple. Her eyes were fused shut. She got down to 1 pound, 12 ounces, I think. She spent 3 months in the hospital. I was there almost every single day, watching her dance on the edge of the abyss. We watched her cross over into death 3 separate times. Her heart stopped beating, she stopped breathing, she turned blue, and they took her away. Limp. We had no way to know what the future held, but hope, that wellspring within us, allowed us to show up every single day without a need for a future, fully in the present. If she had died, the days that we had with her would still have been days filled with magic, not with fear and hopelessness. My daughter taught me to live in the present moment, in the middle of one of the most difficult things I can imagine for any parent. The truth is that hope lives in the present. The fourth truth is that hope and deep pain can live together. 2 years ago, I burned my hand on one of those super hot curling irons. And I had a doctor's appointment for something else that day. I went in and this wise doctor says to me, "So it looks like you'll be developing a new relationship with pain." Every time I would take my hand off of the ice pack, the pain would come raging back. And so I thought I needed to keep my hand on the ice so that I wouldn't feel that pain, because I didn't think that I could handle it. But after a little while, I began to breathe into it. And eventually, as I played with taking my hand off and breathing into it, I discovered that I could handle the pain. Nina Riggs was a young mother and poet. She was the great-great-great-granddaughter of Ralph Waldo Emerson. She was diagnosed with breast cancer at the same time that her own mother was dying of breast cancer. In her gorgeous memoir called The Bright Hour, she shares the story of laying in bed one night talking with her husband about her cancer. She had just finished her first round of chemo, and her husband said he couldn't wait for things to get back to normal. She responds, "I can't handle you saying that. Thinking that way kind of invalidates my whole life right now. I have to love these days in the same way that I love any other. There might not be a normal from here on out." He responds, "I really think you're in some kind of whacked out denial right now if you think these days are lovable." "These days are days," she says, calm and furious. "We choose how we hold them." Good night. Try as we might, we can't avoid pain. Nina Riggs' ability to love her days in the middle of her mother dying, even as she discovered that her own cancer was terminal. Her ability to love her days required developing a new relationship with pain. When we're in pain, we try to be anywhere but here and now, feeling the pain. We think about the past, we think about the future. We numb ourselves with TV and work and sex and alcohol and food. But we know that the practice of trying to avoid the pain actually makes it worse. I have this silly thought that everything needs to be going reasonably well to love my days. But there is another option. Rather than fighting it, ignoring it, avoiding the pain, I can feel it. I can breathe into it. I can be with it. I don't need to love the pain, but the pain doesn't have to go away to love my days, to experience hope. The truth is that hope and deep pain can live together. The fifth truth is that we need big hope and everyday hope. Sometimes it's in the little things where hope is the hardest to find, especially in the accumulation of little things. We need big hope, but we also need hope in the details, for getting out of bed, sending the email, getting the kids to school, or getting them to do their math homework, having that conversation with your partner. Each of these things requires what I call everyday hope. I've had some health issues over the last year that have greatly reduced the number of things that I can eat. And let me tell you, when I'm having a day lost in my own ego, I can lose my sense of well-being pretty easily. This summer it happened when the restaurant that I drove across town for was out of the Moroccan grilled vegetables, the only thing that I could eat on the menu. That's where I practice accessing well-being, when there's nothing on the menu that I can eat, and I have to sit there and watch my partner eat a delicious meal. That practice in the little things helps me access hope when the big things come along. The truth is that we need big hope and everyday hope. The sixth truth is that we can't have hope It can only be experienced. It's not a thing that we can have or hold. It's not like a block of cheese. And if it can't be had, then it can't be lost. We can stop feeling hope, stop experiencing hope. But the truth is, we are never out of hope. Hope is an energetic force, a wellspring. That's what makes it different from positivity or optimism. Those are based in our thoughts. That's one of the problems that I had with hope. It doesn't have a physical manifestation. I struggled because I couldn't see it, feel it, hear it, touch it, taste it, smell it. And so I thought it wasn't there. But we're never without hope. We only need to remember where to find it. The truth is that we can't have hope. It can only be experienced. The seventh truth is that hope is available to everyone, regardless of childhood wounds, marital status, education, financial situation, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, or even religion. It's not exclusive to any one group. There's an endless fountain inside each of us, and everybody has the same access to it. And the ability to access hope is a skill that we can build, a muscle that we can build. That's true for anybody, no matter who you are, no matter what's in your past. The truth is that hope is available to everyone. So let's come back to our new definition of hope. True hope is a hidden and endless wellspring within us that is accessible to us no matter the circumstances. If hope is a fountain, if it's always accessible, the question becomes, how do we access it when we need it? How do we live a life of hope? Well, it starts by hoping less in the traditional sense. We let go of wishing that our circumstances will change. In fact, we stop focusing on our outer circumstances at all. We hope less in the traditional sense. And instead, we connect to that endless wellspring, that spark of light that's inside each one of us. That brings up an important distinction: hoping for versus hoping or experiencing hope. Hope, in the way that we've been taught to think about it and use it, was always focused on hoping for something. Hoping for great weather on our vacation, hoping for a cure for my partner's cancer. But true hope is much more powerful than that. When we move from hoping for to simply hoping, we expand beyond our knowledge and our thoughts, expand beyond all that we were thinking about what's best for us, and we move into a world of endless possibility. Experiencing hope moves beyond your thinking and into your body, into your heart. That is where true hope resides. You know how some cars have a beeping system? They let you know when you veer out of your lane on the highway. Super helpful. We also have dashboard lights indicating when we've left the hope lane. I can tell when I'm feeling hopeless as I hear myself say things like always, or never, or poor me. What if this goes wrong? Or maybe it doesn't matter anyway, or any other statement of defeat. Hope isn't something that we have or don't. It's an energetic force that we can tap into any time, no matter the circumstances. So each of us needs a personal hope toolkit, a set of tools that can bring us back into hope's presence. Now, the only thing that will reliably bring me back to hope is staying open to its presence until I get reconnected. But the right tools can help light the way. These are tools that you can pull out whenever you need a boost of hope. I recommend that you use your tools in your personal toolkit regularly. Get to know how they work for you specifically. Cultivating hope is a daily practice like yoga. There's no recipe for it. I'll share some elements of my practice, especially as I embrace my role as the hope whisperer. One element for me is breath. It brings me back to my body and to the present moment. I access hope through my body, not through my mind. My breath brings me back to the present moment. And that's where hope lives, in the present. Hopelessness only lives in the context of the past and the future. I keep coming back to presence, and the goal is to use my breath to bring me back. Movement is another important element for me. Maybe something that makes me out of breath, ideally something that's outside. Yoga is a big one for me. There's no better way to get out of my mind and body. Connecting with that which is greater than myself. My biggest struggle is thinking that I am my little self, that I am my ego, and I'm here in life all alone, disconnected from everything else. That's where I get in trouble. No matter your spiritual or religious beliefs, almost all of us agree that there's something bigger in the world, a thread that connects all of us. Whether you use the language of God or the divine or the universe, I access God or the divine by connecting through my deepest self, through meditation, maybe contemplative prayer, which is just prayer with more listening than talking, or my favorite, what David Steindl-Rast, the Benedictine monk, calls God bathing, where the body is still, speech is silent, the mind is at peace. And I bathe in the presence of the very being of God. Another way to connect with that which is greater is what I call serendipity. Letting go of what I thought I needed and opening myself to what the universe is telling me or offering me. Another element of my practice is understanding and trusting that there's a bigger, deeper story. As you know, the Chinese word for crisis is danger plus opportunity. It can take time for me to get there, but eventually I understand and trust that there is a bigger, deeper story. Finding meaning and purpose always leads me back to hope. Another element is focusing on other people. Helping others takes me out of myself. And if I'm not in a place to do that right now, at least reading and listening to other people's stories of moving through hard times. And creation. Creating beauty in the midst of what is. Creation itself is healing. And there's also what I call fuel for hope. Fuel can stoke the fire. Laughter, love, gratitude, those are fuels for me. And other people's connection to hope. We can remind each other, pass it back and forth. Each of these elements is a way to come back to myself, to the well-being that resides inside of me. So we're in the middle of a pandemic. You probably noticed. COVID has been and will be a test of our ability to access hope. Hope has never been more needed globally, at least not in our lifetimes. There are lots of people who are struggling now. Many more will struggle before the pandemic is over. For many, many people, the pandemic is just a backdrop for other difficult circumstances. And in front of that backdrop, there is a cancer diagnosis, or tornadoes, or divorce, fire, job loss, money worries, loss of loved ones. My life is still about putting the spigot into the maple tree day after day, moment after moment. We can't make it all go away. And so here we are, left to create beautiful lives in the midst of what is. That is what I call hope. And I know we're at time, DTK, but I'm curious if anybody had any insights, or maybe what you saw about how this truth has come up for you, how you've misunderstood hope.
Catherine, I'm going to jump in and just say that you've made me think about hope in a different way. That is powerful. You've given me different threads to really contemplate right now. And for that, I'm grateful. Fantastic. I appreciate you sharing, all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I loved how you said at the beginning, I can assure you, you will have a different relationship with hope by the end of this. And I got curious about that. And I can say at the end of this that I can see that I already have a different relationship with hope. So thank you for sharing your wisdom and your insights and your experience and your beautiful soul. Thank you.
You're so welcome. And may you be able to remind me when it's so ingrained in us that tying hope to our circumstances. So ingrained.
I can see your mission, Catherine, as literally rewriting the dictionary definition of hope. It's like, what a mission. I want to thank you for your deep sharing today. You know, I'm obviously somebody that knows you. I think I know you very well. And it's been one hell of a journey that you've been on. Hearing all of that, certainly stuck together in that way, in that compounded way, distilled way, makes me understand how you're doing this work right now, because you are alive, because you found access to hope when you needed it. I could resonate so much with what you shared. I remember sitting on a mountain 12 years ago with suicidal thoughts, and it was. Now you've given me a new language for that situation. What happened? I found hope. I could access hope in that moment. I didn't follow through.
Clearly, you were not out of hope.
No. And I loved what you said. There's so many nuggets in what you've said. I've written them down. Hope allows us to show up in the moment without a need for the future. A present momentness. Yeah, that's what the world very much needs. So, yeah, privileged to have you on your journey.
Thank you. Thank you all. DTK, I'm going to download the chat, if I may, so that I can read all of that. Thank you so much for being with me.
Thank you for sharing.
Great,
Thank you for going,
great to you.
Beautiful.
Much love, my friend.
I love you all. See you soon.
Capture the rest. Save your chat one more time.
Okay.
Beautiful, Catherine.
All righty. Thank you.
Mm.
Bye.
Thank you, Kat.